we have a Republican and Democrat voice on the show with us at the moment. Alex Zidane joining us, Republican strategist, live from New York. Also with us, Spencer Critchley, former communications advisor for the Obama campaign and a Democrat strategist. Spencer, I'd like to begin with you first. Let's dive right into the black voters. As many surveys have highlighted, a lot of black voters seem to be moving away from Kamala Harris this time around and leaning towards Trump. Can you take our viewers through why this might be happening?
There was certainly some movement among black voters as well as Hispanic voters, and that should be cause for concern to not just the Harris campaign, but to Democrats as a party. The last I saw, some of that movement was reversing. It appeared in particular that black voters and young black male voters were returning towards Harris. But the fact that there was any question should be of concern to Democrats. I think that it's a case that Democrats are wrestling with more broadly, where their policies benefit the great majority of Americans, not just black voters, Hispanic voters, but working and middle class voters. And yet many of those people have stopped believing that, often for more cultural reasons than for fact-based reasons, I think. Now, this is not to say that those people are stupid. It's to say that very often cultural connections greatly outweigh factual arguments. And I think Democrats in general have struggled to unite both the factual substance they can claim, where their policies really do benefit a majority of Americans, a strong majority of Americans, but unite that with a cultural story that resonates with a great majority of Americans. Now, all of that said, I don't want to encourage any judgments too soon, because we could be seeing the famous red mirage right now. Very often elections have shifted as the night goes on and more Democratic-leaning votes are counted.
In fact, that's right. Earlier, we were seeing, now the California has been called for the Democrats, and that's why you see a swing up for Kamala Harris in those numbers. 179 at this moment, place 214. But Alex, if I may come to you, there has been a change of strategy that we saw as far as the Republicans are concerned. Last election, President Trump was very vociferous against the male vote, and he kept speaking against it. This time, there has been a lot of shift in the policy to try and get the male vote as far as the Republicans are concerned, the early vote as well. Is that something that is paying off? Because at least at this moment, the crucial factor has been not just how many people came out to vote on the polling day, but also the number of votes which were, in fact, polled even before the polling started.
Well, I certainly think that mail-ins have been catching on with Republicans, but the early vote has just exploded among Republican voters. They really like it. I saw it myself when I went out to vote on Saturday. Across the country, Republican voters have embraced early voting. And I think you're seeing the results of that tonight, not just the issues that former President Trump leads on, like the economy, like the border, like his peace through strength message, which resonates with every person who votes for him, regardless of their race, color, or creed. But just the fact that Republicans are now running to go out and vote early is a hugely encouraging sign, and it's something that I think that we're seeing pay off right now. Obviously, it is too early to fully claim victory, but right now I think former President Trump is exactly where he needs to be, in an excellent position to retake the White House.
Right. We also have John Rosamondo joining us, who's a U.S. national security commentator. John, there have been many concerns that have been that geopolitical watchers, political analysts have highlighted across the globe, that if Trump gets a second term in office, this time he's coming back with no guardrails. What would this mean for foreign policy? What would this mean for Washington being in good hands as far as NATO is concerned? Take us through some of the implications.
Well, I think this means a return to the sort of peace through strength that we saw in the first term, and also a return to the sort of peace through strength we saw during Reagan's time in office. The last 4 years, we've seen appeasement time after time by the Democrats. We saw that starting with Joe Biden giving away the nuclear agreement when he first came into office, to him appeasing the Iranians. So I think that it is a return to the U.S. working together with India as a major partner, working together with our partners in NATO, but putting more of an emphasis on the Europeans picking up the slack in Europe, with the United States playing a role as a leader. I don't think that we're going to see any sort of isolationism, which has been an unfair criticism leveled by the Democrats and their allies.
John, just a corresponding question to that, and specifically talking about Europe, when there is a war going on between Russia and Ukraine, where so far the Biden administration has been quite supportive of Ukraine. Donald Trump has continuously been saying that this war has to end. How do you see that happening if in the likely or in the scenario Donald Trump wins and he reclaims the White House? What happens to that conflict as we speak?
As far as if you're asking me, the conflict in Ukraine is something that simply is not winnable by either side. Ukraine has become a meat grinder. It's very idealistic to claim that we can win and push the Russians out of the territory they control. I mean, I think that right now the best alternative is something akin to what we have in Korea, where we've had a demilitarized zone for the past 70 or some years. And, I don't think that there's any way that Ukraine is going to retake the territory currently held by the Russians, doesn't have the military means to do so. And NATO doesn't have the ability to push the Russians out. So you have to be pragmatic in this situation. And I think that President Trump and his national security team will push for pragmatism instead of throwing hundreds of billions of dollars for a strategy that hasn't worked.
Wars, as you know, are becoming ever harder to end. As we speak currently, do you believe the United States remains the most consequential international actor in matters of peace and security?
States has a leading role. We have the largest economy in the world. We have the most powerful military, and we have a lot of credibility. President Trump showed in his first term that he was able to show leadership. He was able to get the NATO members to increase their contributions to over over 2% of their GDP, as was required under the NATO agreement. He also was able to work with Prime Minister Modi to increase the cooperation between the United States and India, and also work with people like Shinzo Abe in Japan to encourage the rearmament, which is something that shows that Donald Trump is not an isolationist.
Right. Spencer, let me bring you in, at this moment with a lot of issues that are being spoken about, and at least the exit poll, while they put democracy right at the top, followed by economy, and then also there is a lot of resonance as far as the reproductive rights are concerned. The Harris campaign would have been hoping that apart from the Democrats, they would be able to get significant votes, even in red states, from the women voters. At least at this moment, with the trends coming in, that doesn't seem to be suggesting that there is a significant dent among this issue as far as the red voters are concerned.
Yes, at this point in the evening, again, with the caveat that we really don't know what's going to happen later in the evening, unless Trump manages to go over the top later this evening. There's a lot I would challenge on a factual basis with what we just heard. But rather than get into the weeds about that, I think that by far the overwhelming issue in this election is that it is not a normal contest between Republicans and Democrats, or between any version of the right and the left that we're familiar with in a liberal democracy. this is a vote for either one candidate, Kamala Harris, who is in favor of continuing liberal democracy, the liberal democracy that America was founded on as the first one, or overthrowing that, which Trump has already tried to do, not just on January 6th, but through all the months and months of preparation and the multifaceted plan he put together to literally try to overthrow our democracy. And it's far too easy to lose sight of that fact. It's one of those things that's such an enormity of a fact that people tend to banish it from their minds and want to turn towards the normal kinds of debates over economic policy or foreign policy, environmental policy, etc. But really, this is a choice between whether we are in favor of liberal democracy or not. And it's not just Trump following his impulsive, frankly, gangsterish impulses that he did in his first administration. Now he has a large core of committed ideologues who have made no secret of their hostility to liberal democracy. Many of them believe that the United States should be converted to a Christian dominion, taking us back not just to the 50s, as is often said about Trump, but taking us back centuries before the Enlightenment into the Middle Ages. This really is the most concerning issue, as I say, and by far the overriding issue in this campaign. And I would also just, in closing, note that it is part of a global trend. We're seeing this in other advanced democracies like Germany, Italy, France, Britain, and indeed in the Ukraine-Russia war, where Russia represents the anti-liberal forces in their most extreme form, led by a man who Trump openly admires, along with the world's other dictators, attacking an independent liberal democracy. So really, this is an enormous issue, and I think every other issue pales in comparison.
Well, before we get in a word from Alex as well, let's just take a look at the latest visuals coming in, Ankit. The Harris campaign rally on the left side of your screens and the Trump campaign rally on the right side of your screens. Packed crowds, as expected.
But, packed crowds, and if you look at these numbers, very hopeful supporters there. But it also tells you at this moment that, it's muted expectations from both sides. I mean, there is not over-the-top celebrations at this moment, either in both the camps. And, like we've been talking to our guests as well, this election, you couldn't have had two such contrasting, polarizing figures and absolutely different political ideologies battling it out in the United States, isn't it?
Absolutely. In fact, Alex, let's get in a word from you as well. Many actually say that the average American is actually very skeptical about Kamala Harris. In fact, many in your quarters say this out louder. But here she is running against an impeached felon, and it's still a toss-up. How is it that you and your campaign have been able to sort of galvanize such a huge support in a short period of time since when Kamala Harris entered the race?
Well, thank you for letting me respond. I really thought that Spencer was going to accuse the Republican Party of trying to take the U.S. back to the time of the dinosaurs in prehistory. The way that former President Trump reaches people is that he reaches average, regular people who are concerned about their lives, who are concerned about how to put food on the table, who are concerned about crime and migration, who are concerned about their children's future, going to schools, potentially being indoctrinated by woke topics. That's how former President Trump reaches people in their kitchen tables, in their homes, as they go to work, in their hearts, as part of their families. That's the message that works here. And by the way, there's no mystery on what President Trump will do when he gets back into office. He'll construct that southern border wall that he's been advocating for since 2015. He'll improve the economy and lead America and the world with peace through strength. No one knows what Kamala Harris would do if she is elected president, which seems less and less likely by the moment, because Vice President Harris made very little of her plans, didn't give people specifics. People know Donald Trump. He has a record of 4 years when he was president, when America was prosperous and safe. That's what people are reacting to. They want that prosperity and strength back. And they were not able to find any indication that Kamala Harris is capable of delivering that for them and their families.
But Alex, let me ask you this then. I mean, it's still very early. Yes, there are, at this moment, Donald Trump leads, but, one or two states, swing states here and there, and the result could completely turn on its head. Let me ask you this. Donald Trump has been seen as somebody who is, for the lack of a better word, very abrasive in his approach, the way he speaks. He alienates also a large section of the people, including women, those who have been speaking about, and also people from various descents in America. Is that a worry in the Trump campaign, or does that, somehow come across as a strong point for the core Trump supporters, the core Republican supporters?
He's not alienating people so far tonight. And if you look at the numbers, for black men, the numbers for Muslims, and the youth vote, former President Trump is making strides in those areas, in addition to Latinos, depending on where you look on the map. I think that former President Trump's appeal is that he speaks like a regular guy, a guy that you could walk into a bar and have a conversation with, because he's that blue-collar billionaire that he's been since his developer days in New York City and in Atlantic City, New Jersey. He's a regular guy. He's not some sort of policy wonk sharpening his pencil inside a room in the U.S. Capitol. He's a regular person, and I think people gravitate to that because they want someone who represents them leading their country. Let's not forget former President Trump's greatest slogan that so many people gravitate towards, people who feel oppressed by the establishment and the system. What he says is, they're not coming after me, they're coming after you, but I'm the one standing in the way. People respond to that in a very visceral, positive way.
Alex, you have just said that Donald Trump is a normal, regular person, but then what about the curbs on personal freedom rights? Things like abortion, a male making decisions for a female's body. That's been one of your key issues this election. In terms of being a regular guy, how is it that Donald Trump, born with a silver spoon, is seen and perceived as a regular guy? What has actually gone into building this perception around him?
Well, first, I'll say this about abortion. President Trump was crystal clear. There will be no federal national abortion ban when he returns to the White House. That is a hard no. It's not going to happen. He's not in favor of it. That is something that takes a lot of those issues regarding abortion and puts it on the state level, where, by the way, the Supreme Court, not Donald Trump, says they belong. President Trump has an ability to connect with people. I don't know if you've seen the photos of him in front of a large table of McDonald's, him serving at McDonald's in Pennsylvania, driving a garbage truck. Those images stick with people. Yes, the guy has a penthouse suite in Trump Tower. Yes, he owns Mar-a-Lago. But still, he's able to connect with people because he understands that a lot of folks in this country, a lot of hardworking folks.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you here, but
safety, security,
there is some important information which is coming in at this moment. Donald Trump, in fact, the Republicans had taken the swing state of North Carolina, though it was expected, but one of the swing states has been called, and it has been called in favor of Donald Trump and the Republicans. So at this moment, where we stand, 230 is playing 179 out of the Electoral College votes that have been counted so far. So Donald Trump looks in the lead at this moment. There are still 6 more swing states that are possibly going to decide which way does this election go. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us at this moment. We'll have to slip into a very, very short break, ladies and gentlemen. What
the question being, can Kamala Harris catch up at the moment?
Can she catch up? Now, that's the big question. Parmeshwar and I will keep coming back to you along with our team and give you the latest updates here on NDTV World. Stay tuned.